As you can see on the screen, I hope that we're just in a countdown hold for the Terran-1 launch this afternoon. The countdown has been held at 20 minutes because of high winds. We're just waiting to get a report on what the situation is there. But the spacecraft apparently is in a good condition, and all they need to happen is for the winds to drop a little bit before they can actually launch. So we will keep an eye on that and obviously keep you informed. Looks a lovely day there today, Daz, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I mean, we just saw a view, a pulled back a view, and you could see these palm trees and they're flapping around.
Yeah.
But that's not the problem. This was exactly the same on Wednesday. It looks as though it's windy on the ground, but this is just a mild breeze apparently. The strong winds are at high altitudes, and they're just waiting for those to drop a bit. And then, as you said, the whole thing is in good condition, so they're just ready to launch. And as soon as they get rid of the high winds at high altitude, then we'll all be go again. So fingers crossed.
Yes. It is actually high altitude winds they're worried about more than the ones on the ground, obviously.
Yeah.
Because
so they want to make sure effort, give it every chance it can. But I would like to say, so excuse me, Relativity Space are being realistic about this. They've actually said themselves, if well, which is what everybody's hoping for, absolutely fantastic. But what they're looking at, I think that I was reading that if they can get the thing off the ground, that's the first bonus. If they can get to 80 seconds, that's another bonus. If they can get through max Q, which is when it's under its biggest pressure, that's another one. And if it goes all the way, then fantastic. But they are being realistic. It could fail. As I said, I mean, I jokingly called it air fix, but it's not even plastic. But they're being realistic about it. They know it's the first time a 3D printed rocket's ever been launched using methane, and they're the first to do it. And so if things go wrong, any data is good data, and that's always been the same with SpaceX. They're the same. They will test it to the nth degree, and whatever data they get from it, if they come success or failure, is a bonus. Because you can go back. These things are absolutely loaded with sensors all over the place, and they'll learn so much. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for them. I'd like to see this happen for them. So
most definitely, and it is a first, as you said. It's the world's first 3D printed rocket. Well, 85% of it is 3D printed, and of course, one thing that does mean is that it's got 100 times fewer parts than a conventional rocket, because in a conventional rocket you've got all the nuts and bolts and things to hold it together, which this doesn't have, because with a 3D printer you can print continuous surfaces without any problem at all. You don't need to join bits together all the time. So as a result, the rocket has less mass, theoretically, and it certainly has a lot fewer parts. And of course, as Elon Musk will tell you, if you have fewer parts, that means greater reliability. There's less to go wrong. And don't forget, it was Elon Musk who said the best part is no part, and he's absolutely right. So theoretically, 3D printing rockets should mean that you end up with a much, much more reliable space vehicle than one that isn't 3D printed. So it will be really interesting to see not just this flight. I don't know how many test flights they've got lined up for the Terran-1. I don't know whether you know, Daz.
Well, as we said earlier, if this does fail, then they're looking at they probably will not try again with a Terran-1, because their eyes are set on the Terran-R, which is the big rocket, and which will carry far bigger payloads, and that's what they're looking at. That's the market they're looking for. Yes. I mean, when you showed the pictures earlier, I don't know if you want to go through them again just to show people who weren't with us earlier. The size of this rocket compared to the Terran-1 is humongous. It dwarfs it. I mean, this is a big enough rocket, but this is for small payloads. So
Yeah.
hello, Bernard. But
Yes.
yeah,
Hi,
it's
guys.
I mean, like I said, fingers crossed. Let's get this thing off the ground. As you said, lots of firsts. They're being realistic. Anything they're happy to get anything out of this flight. And if it's a success, then onwards and upwards for them.
Well,
This is the first for everything for them. So
yes.
fair play to them.
If you just give me 1 second, I will just line that presentation from earlier up again for those of our viewers who didn't see it. If you've just joined us, this is Space Oddities. We are covering today's launch of the Terran-1 rocket from the company Relativity Space. This is a world first because the Terran-1 is the world's first 3D printed rocket, and it's also the world's first methane-fueled rocket to try and get into orbit. So we've all got our fingers crossed here that it will go off, because it's a revolutionary step in manufacturing rockets, potentially much cheaper, giving us incredibly more reliable rockets than what's been built so far. And at the moment, the countdown is on a hold at 20 minutes because of high winds. We're just waiting to hear a report on whether the winds are going to be lessening in the near future or whether they're going to call off the launch. We hope, obviously, that the winds die down a bit. So there we are. And while we're waiting for that, I can see there are the 3D printed engines. You can see them there. They look a little different to conventional engines, and but they're all ready to go. Apparently, the spacecraft is in a good state of health. And why don't we just have a look at the what we were talking about earlier? And Relativity Space is a company. It's a space startup that was founded in 2015 by Tim Ellis and George Noon. It currently has 700 plus employees, and it's based in Long Beach, California. Moving on to their future, they intend to have two 3D printed rockets: the Terran-1, which is the one taking off today, and the Terran-R, which is the much bigger rocket. But these rockets have 100 times fewer parts than conventional rockets. They can be built 10 times faster, and they have lots and lots of other advantages. And the engines themselves, the Aeon engines, as they're called, are 3D printed as well as everything else. The Terran-1 can launch up to 1.25 tons into low Earth orbit, and it does have indeed 100 times fewer parts than conventional rockets. They have a Relativity Space have a dedicated factory for this 3D printing called the Stargate factory, and they have revolutionary 3D printing techniques going on there. And there we are. This is the rocket that's launching today, the Terran-1. It stands 24 meters high. It can launch 1,250 kilograms to low Earth orbit, or 900 kilograms to a 500 kilometer sun synchronous orbit, or 700 grams to a 1,200 kilometer sun synchronous orbit. The second stage contains one of their Aeon vacuum engines. Then you have the interstage, the first stage going down, and then you have the thrust at the bottom from the 7 Aeon engines. Looking at the Terran-R rocket, this is a much bigger rocket, as shown in the size comparison on the left, 66 meters tall in this case. And we have the payload can be up to 20 tons, so it's a rocket of a much larger capacity. One Aeon vacuum engine for the second stage, grid fins, which you might be familiar with from SpaceX rockets like the Falcon 9, the first stage, and again the thrust structure this time with 7 Aeon engines. So there we are. So that's the lineup, if you like, for the Relativity Space rockets. We're still holding at 20 minutes in the countdown, and we're going to go over now to the Relativity Space live coverage itself. and let's listen in just for a couple of minutes to see if we can find out what's happening.
That were the reason for us holding the clock. We'll continue listening in, and hopefully everything sounds good.
So not much going on there by the sound of it. Still no word from anybody about the situation. I see that we have some people joining us. Thank you to all of you for being here. If you want to say hi in the chat, we'd be very happy to have you say hi. And I see Michael's now disappeared, and he's disappeared into Chatland, Michael. So there we are. Hello, Ian, and hello, Wenham, Matthew Wenham. How are you? There's mission control at Relativity Space. You can see in front of you, and looking good there. Quite a few people there today, as you can see. And I bet they're all sitting back really bored now because they can't do anything until those upper winds, upper atmosphere winds drop a little. And we got Rachel there as well. Hi, Rachel. How are you? Hope you had a good day at the show, and hope it all went well. And there we are.
Rachel says she was there with Roger and Mary.
Yeah, and Kath as well.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Cool.
tell us in the chat how it went, Rachel. How did the SPA show go?
Can I just say, we've discussed in the previous session a few hours ago when we were watching the first launch attempt, or not the launch attempt, but the first part of this launch. We were discussing all the reason why this mission is important, and all the rest. And so we've dived into a lot earlier. And I think there's one thing that personally I missed out is that I'd like this mission to succeed because it's just damn cool to have a 3D rocket, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the idea of having a 3D rocket is just cool. Out of all the other, more concrete reasons why this mission should go ahead.
Yeah. Matthew says fingers crossed for launch window open. Yes.
Yeah. Mind you, those palm trees were looking quite shaky in the
yes, that's what we were saying, but it's the actual upper atmosphere winds they're concerned about because
right.
Daz says it normally looks like that on the ground. It is a very breezy place, right next to the ocean, so you can expect breezes, but it's the upper level wind data that they're not quite happy about.
Got it.
Right, the Popular Astronomy show went well, very busy and lots of lovely faces, says Rachel.
Yeah, and they're a few pounds lighter. They built some filters by the look of it.
Filters for the telescope.
Well, it'd be rude not to go. Well, not to buy something while you're there, would it be rude not to?
Absolutely. If you're going to go to a show like that, of course you have to buy something. So, still waiting for any word at all. Let's go back and listen to Relativity Space and see again if anything is going on. I think the answer to that is a resounding no.
No. So as I mentioned earlier, about this mission sort of crystallizes new space, at least in America. I recall when I spoke to Skyrora, which is one of these new space industries in Europe, and Skyrora is based in Scotland, and it was primarily funded by and is primarily funded by Ukrainian businessmen. And when I spoke to one of the business development person there, they were I really felt a strong passion, but also a lot of energy, a lot of a clear understanding of what they were doing, and there was so much passion into the endeavor they were trying to do at Skyrora. And I feel that this is definitely something that the folks at Relativity must feel as well, is that they are at the cusp of this enormous milestone for them, and the energy that they must have, the enthusiasm must be amazing. I really wish I was there to actually witness that.
Yes.
At their offices and their facilities.
Indeed. we've spoken to quite a few people from what you might term new space recently, both when we were in our Astro Radio days and now with Space Oddities. And we did actually speak. We had a special guest from Skyroarer on Astro Radio, and he was the launch director for Skyroarer.
Oh,
and the
fantastic.
same thing came across. He was so delighted and ecstatic to be doing what he was doing, and really optimistic for the future, and really happy to be pushing the space industry, especially the British space industry, forward. And you find this time and time again, and it's inspiring that we have this new generation of space entrepreneurs with all of these startup companies, Relativity Space, Astra and Rocket Lab, and who else have I forgotten? But
Orbex.
Yes, Orbex. Thank you, Daz. Yes, Orbex. They're springing up all over the place because they want to do things in a different way, and that is, they all probably watched, NASA on TV when they were younger, and thought we can do this better, or we can do it differently. But the difference is now that they have the technology to do it, and that, I think, is the prime difference, that space technology has moved on so far just in the last 5 years, that things are possible now that just wouldn't have been 5 years ago. And I think what you're looking at on the screen is a prime example of this, the Terran-1 rocket being 3D printed predominantly, and it's only recently that these things have come available. Also, I think the internet plays a huge role in the space industry now, because before the internet, it was very difficult to collaborate with experts around the world, and now you can do so instantly, at the click of a mouse. So there's a lot more internationalism in the space industry now than there ever was. Different countries working together on things, and I think the incredible improvement in communication that has come about because of the internet has enabled this new movement to really, really grow, and to sort of free themselves from the shackles of traditional space companies or space agencies, and do things in new and innovative ways because they can. And that is where I think the excitement comes from. So
and in a way, Andy, it really it goes back to let's hear the pretty ladies.
Give me 1 second, and I will put the sound on.
Weather issues, unfortunately. Upper level winds are currently marginal, so the team is evaluating live data to determine if we can go ahead and keep rolling the clock, or if we need to pause for a little bit longer.
And as we wait on that additional data on the upper level winds, and as we get an update from the team, let's go ahead and take a moment to get an idea about all the work that the integrated performance team does for Relativity Space.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kraft.
I'm Katie Wallace.
My name is David Brown.
I'm the Director of Integrated Performance at Relativity.
I'm a vehicle simulation engineer.
And I'm a staff vehicle simulation engineer.
One of the key things that we focus on in the department is connecting all the different teams, making sure the structures work with the engines work with the software, and the software works with the electronics hardware. I was lucky enough to work in a few different hardware startups. This is actually number 5 for me. Worked on electric vehicles, race cars, rockets, and manned spacecraft.
A typical day in the life for me at Relativity can vary a lot, but in general, it'll involve running a lot of different trades and analyses, helping with mission planning tasks, and also building up new simulation capability.
I've spent my entire career working on simulation controls. I started off working in the automotive industry on hybrid vehicles, and later moved on to motorsports and general consulting for other industries.
When I saw what was going on at Relativity here about 3.5 years ago, I realized this is the coolest place to be on Earth, and I wanted to join the team. Some of the things that we get to learn every day, I don't think you can learn anywhere else, and the team that I get to do it with just makes it even sweeter. Specifically, some of the big challenges are around figuring out what parts of accepted practice in the rocket industry still make sense for us, and where we should change things, or when we should just throw it out and start over with a completely new approach.
I think one of the most exciting challenges is getting to work on Terran-1, especially because our team gets to be really involved with the early design, running different trades and analyses and trajectories. And it's challenging because it's never been done before, but it's really exciting to really get to help shape this new vehicle.
My role is usually involved taking small components and subsystems and integrating them into complex system models, which then have great predictive capabilities. What I find most exciting about this is then taking these models and using that capability to help guide design work.
There's a lot of places where an engineer can come in today and still define how Relativity will do rocket engineering for the next 5 to 10 years. When we look for candidates in the integrated performance team, the main thing that we're looking for is hunger to face really hard problems and excitement to learn as you go. We're just looking for people with different views, different experiences, and different ideas to find the right way to do a reusable rocket next time around.
I think someone who would be a great candidate for Relativity would be someone who enjoys working on complex problems and solving difficult challenges. Having any background with simulation or launch vehicle modeling is always helpful, as well as orbital mechanics or general physics background.
One thing I would suggest for candidates coming from more traditional physics backgrounds is to basically demonstrate that you have the experience of taking the analysis that you've performed on a computer and turning that into actionable insight that you can share with the team and use to help guide design decisions.
Right now the team's about 40. We're looking to double that in the next year or so. We've been growing a lot in the last year, but definitely a lot more to come as we get ready for Terran-1 and all the fun physical challenges there. One of the very unique opportunities here at Relativity is being part of a lot of technical firsts. We printed our first rocket, we're testing it right now. We're about to go through our first launch, then our first customer, and eventually our first re-entry landing of a booster and reuse of it. One thing that people might not know about working in an integrated performance team in a rocket company is that a lot of us didn't have a rocket background when we came in. People come from cars, software development, engineering analysis, planes, missiles. I feel like the opportunity for a really fast pace of learning across a very broad range of technical topics, you can't really find that anywhere else. I think what draws people to Relativity is it's a unique type of physics.
Okay, so no real news then. I'm still waiting on the latest wind measurements.
It looks like we are coordinating a new T0 right now that is going to be at 14:35 Eastern. We're awaiting confirmation from Mission Control at the moment, so we're going to continue listening into them for any further updates.
Okay, let's work out. What does that mean in
What's that in real money?
What they've done is they've taken the hold back to T-40.
Right.
Because they've probably had some boil off of the fuels and things like that. And because it's methane, there is some special parameters that have to be met for it to be able to launch. This is one of the reasons why they had to wait until today, 3 days later, before they could try again from the original launch. But this is all new stuff, and we were listening to the chaps there, and it was amazing that they mentioned other things that, like you were saying, Andy, the inspiration and the technologies that's going into this. Of course, when we spoke to the chap at Black Arrow, Paul, they're using Formula One technology, and one of the chaps in that clip there mentioned that he was part of the Formula One teams. And also, when you were talking about what was the company you were talking about? Kyora, that's a drink. Skyora. Sorry about that, Skyora. They of course, you've got to be using biofuels, which are going to be made out of waste plastic.
That's right.
So.
Does anybody want to take Matthew? Sorry, does anybody want to take Matthew's question that you can see on the screen?
Sorry, I can't. Let me just have a quick look.
Yeah, I'd like to say that while we have never done such things before, I don't see why not. We have raw material, we have the technology. There is enough gravity on Mars, 0.4 g. from Earth. So it's more a matter of finding the raw material really than anything else. But I that's my take on it. I think it's definitely possible.
No,
It could be
I agree with you,
transferable
Bernard.
technology.
Yeah, definitely possible. Thank you very much for your question, Matthew. The answer, I think,
Yeah,
is
well, of course,
possible.
with that, we've already tested 3D printers in space, haven't we? They've
Yes.
been doing it for quite a while on
the
the
ISS.
International Space Station.
Yes.
But also, they're also 3D printing body parts and things like that. So they're actually doing biological matter as well. So it's all being tested, all four, when we venture out into space. If you can 3D print an organ, it'll be from cells of the person. You're going to have no rejection, anything like that. So it's all, we're all trying it all out, new alloys and everything, because in microgravity, the alloys that we can make here are restricted, but once you go into microgravity, you get new and stronger alloys and with different capabilities. I see they've started the count again.
Yeah.
Yes, we're down to 36 minutes and counting. Yes, and in fact, if you look at what the Crew 5 have been doing on the International Space Station, between them they've completed over 200 different science experiments on anything you can think of. A lot of the research, of course, is in medicine on the International Space Station, because the International Space Station is largely geared towards understanding the effects of microgravity on the human body for the benefit of future space travelers. But they've been doing all sorts of things, from growing insulin crystals in micro G, which you can do much better than you can on the Earth. You can get much purer insulin by making it in microgravity than you can on the Earth. They've been doing research into osteoporosis. They've been doing a lot of research, and sometimes people forget this, that what we do space for is to help everybody on Earth, not just not just a few. Definitely a rocket like this, the Terran-1, a step forward in technology, and if it makes space travel a lot cheaper and it enables more people to actually get into space, then it's worth doing, because space is for everybody, not just a few.
And, so it goes back to the saying, what space does for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we know that we all benefit from space in so many ways.
Yeah.
That space travel and space exploration is now firmly woven into the fabric of our lives, whether it's communications, internet, smartphones, weather warnings, and so on and so forth. And it just goes on and on and on. So this is why we do it. But space is for everybody, and it should be for everybody. It's a common heritage of humans, and a way must be found to get into space cheaper than we can do it at the moment. SpaceX, of course, are already making enormous strides to drastically bringing down the cost of getting into orbit. But if Relativity Space can do the same and show us another cheap way of getting into orbit, then it will benefit everybody.
Yeah, and can I say also, from an investor point of view, there's a long-term vision regarding this, and if it can succeed on Earth, and as we carry on developing capabilities to stay on the moon, then definitely the investors behind Relativity Space is they're definitely conscious of that, and they're looking at those possibilities. So yeah, absolutely. This is going to be transferable.
Well,
everywhere.
there is some confidence already with Relativity in these rockets, because they've already got orders for launching satellites into space.
Yes, they
and
have.
One of them is the British company OneWeb. So
yeah.
Yes, because SpaceX have just launched their last mission for OneWeb, haven't they, this week?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So thanks. Matthew's just replied, thanks, folks. The alloys, composite materials that could be created through this experimentation are very exciting. Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
And these new alloys that they're making in microgravity, they have got so many, like I say, so many possibilities, and they've got different ways that they react and work and things like that. So, I mean, with these 3D printers, as we said, they can either be small or they can be large. So yes, you can take them anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Because I think there was even talk about taking 3D printers up to make habitats, wasn't it, for
I was just
on the
thinking
moon and that. So
I was just thinking
Yeah.
that because they're on about using 3D printing on the moon for habitats on the moon. I was just thinking, I wonder how long it will be before spacecraft will be built in orbit.
yeah, could be, yeah.
You mentioned that.
I mean, if you can build them in orbit, I mean, you think about the cost of the saving on fuel and just to get these things off the ground, especially the real big rockets. So you look at the SLS,
Yeah.
and going back to the Apollos, I mean, these were vastly massive machines,
Yeah.
and they took so much to get off the ground in fuel, in technology, and everything like that. If you can build them in space, we've won half the battle.
Yeah.
So the job's virtually done for you. So yeah, it's exciting times, and
Okay, excuse me.
there are
Hold on,
Sorry.
Daz.
And you might be wondering where we built the launch vehicle that you're seeing on the pad. We currently have 2 manufacturing facilities in Long Beach,
Right, nothing
California.
important. Sorry, Daz, carry on.
Oh, poor lady, this is a big moment. Yeah, which I think I've seen this before. This is where, like you showed earlier, where they're doing the 3D printed.
Yes.
But yeah, it's what's actually happening is absolutely fantastic. I mean, we do have a downside with space junk, which is a problem that's really got to be resolved. But when you've got cheaper rockets and all that, where you can send up small tugs and things like that to deorbit all this stuff, it can only be a win-win situation. So
absolutely.
yeah, and anything that's cheaper and reusable is fantastic.
And talking about anything that's cheaper, reusable, let's just have a look at the Space Oddities calendar for this year. The missions that we, like we are doing today, the missions that we hope to bring you live this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Terran-1 march was originally scheduled for earlier this week. As we know, this is the second attempt at getting the rocket into orbit. And then sometime this month, but latest information indicates it may be as late as May, is the first attempt by SpaceX to get their Starship into orbit, which we're particularly looking forward to because that's a revolution in itself again. Sometime in the first quarter, the launch of the Vulcan Centaur, and that's another brand new rocket from ULA. So that is a fantastic thing to keep your eye open for. And then we have, just give me 1 second. Then we have, going forward, April the 13th, the launch of JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer. This is another one we are really looking forward to seeing, aren't we, guys? So so that's on European mission to the outer planets, to the moons of Jupiter, and that's on April the 13th. Sometime in April, we've got an Atlas V launching the next attempt by Boeing to prove that their Starliner ferry vehicle works, and 2 brave astronauts have volunteered for that. They're much braver than I am, I tell you. And so that's sometime in April. Is meant to be the next test of the Boeing Starliner, which, as you may know, has had a disastrous record up to now. So we hope that they've solved the problems, and most of all, we hope those 2 astronauts will be okay. Then in July, we've got Falcon 9 launching the rather interesting mission Polaris Dawn, which is an all-private space mission, and they have enormous plans for the future. And again, it's being commanded by Jared Isaacman, the billionaire, who raised millions upon millions of dollars on his last flight for a children's cancer hospital. So well done to him. And during that mission, we should be seeing an actual spacewalk using a SpaceX designed spacesuit. So that's going to be exciting as well. Sometime third quarter, we've got Falcon 9 launching the Euclid mission for the European Space Agency. And that is a telescope and 2 scientific instruments designed to explore the evolution of the so-called dark universe, that is dark energy and dark matter. And it's going to do that by making a 3D map of billions of galaxies out to about 10 billion light years distance across the third of the sky. And this was originally supposed to launch on a Soyuz rocket, but of course with the Ukrainian war, it didn't. So this is a much delayed mission, and we're looking forward to that sometime in the third quarter. In August, we've got, again, a totally new vehicle. This really is the year for new space vehicles, isn't it? This is the Dream Chaser by Sierra Nevada Space, and a revolutionary space plane which will be able to land like a normal aeroplane at any airport in the world. It doesn't need a fantastically long runway like the shuttle did. And that's being launched sometime in August, or no earlier than August, we should say, from Cape Canaveral. So our eyes are on the Dream Chaser. And then on October the 10th, on October the 10th, we have the long-awaited Psyche mission launched on a Falcon Heavy. This is launching a space probe to have a look at the asteroid we know as Psyche, which is incredibly interesting because it appears to be largely, if not totally, metallic. And the net worth of the metals in that asteroid is more than the entire economy of the world in terms of dollars. And we think it may be the core of a planetoid that never really got any further in forming. So it's the metallic core of a planetoid, but nobody really knows what it is, to be quite honest. So we'll be having a look at that eventually. And it has been delayed because of payload software issues, but finally Psyche is launching in October. And I think that is it, guys. So there we are.
And Andy, when you mention Space Oddity's calendar, I'm still having nightmares. Please, don't use it.
Sorry. I shouldn't have used the word calendar. I should have used the word agenda.
Yeah.
Just in case you don't know what that was all about, we ordered some Space Oddities calendars for our viewers who wanted to buy them at Christmas. And when they turned up, they were great photographs because the photographs were taken from our viewers' gallery. So they were all viewers' photographs that we'd chosen, especially for the calendar. And we spent a lot of time selecting the images because we have a lot of entries for our weekly gallery normally. Anyway, so when the calendars finally turned up, the pictures looked absolutely fantastic. But the only problem was there were no actual dates on the calendars. So images only. So there we are.
It was a picture book.
It was a picture book, which was real egg on our face. But apparently the printers, if we wanted to put actual dates on a calendar, we had to tell them specifically because they didn't know that a calendar is meant to have dates on, quite obviously. So there we are. And Matt is asking another question. What are your hopes for the Euclid mission? Anybody want to take that one?
I replied. I said I have strong hopes. The European Space Agency has a great track record on their space science missions, and I don't see any real problems facing the mission apart from the delay that they had to incur.
Yeah,
I mean, in a way, the Euclid mission is a bit like the Gaia type mission. And it's going to tell us so much about the dynamics of the stars, of the galaxies. I mean, we're not going to, it's going to take quite a while over years, but it's going to give us so much data and tell us what's actually happening. I mean, at the moment, I am absolutely enthralled with James Webb and its studying of the early universe. I mean, we were talking about this last week on the show. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling how already some of our ideas that we thought we knew what was going on are already been challenged, and they've got to come up with new theories. It's absolutely fantastic. And also, I did see Ian McIntyre. He put a philosophical question, could we print flesh and bone and add AI to it? Now, have you seen Terminator, Ian?
Have a go, mate. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Have you seen Terminator? You know, just think on. But just changing the subject slightly, we've got where are we? We're down to 22 minutes now. Of course, we're all talking about the small things, but also we've got Artemis, and on the 3rd of April, we should be hearing the crew for Artemis 2 to be officially announced. Of course, they'll be traveling around the moon, and they'll be testing all the life support systems and things like that. But also, they've just had their new budget request just launched, and on Monday there is another NASA YouTube show, which is going to go into detail of how that money is going to be used. And also they're going to mention the space stroke moon suits that they've developed. Now, this is quite strange because I haven't heard anything about the moon suits or the space suits for a very, very long time. And all of a sudden, they're going to be presenting us with the new suits on in the next couple of days. So I'm assuming that'll be Monday as well. So very strange, that one. I'd like to know who's been making these suits in secret. So yeah,
definitely.
So yes, we've got the Artemis as well to look forward to.
Looking forward to the astronaut selection for Artemis 2.
Indeed.
But that's going to be sort of a Apollo 8 all over again, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
And it's just Michael, as we all know, it's just such a tragedy that it's taken so long between.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
1968 to 1923. I mean, 2023. It's just, it's unthinkable, really. All those wasted decades.
If only we could have done it in 2018.
Well, yes, indeed. But
guys, talking about that and looking again at the agenda, we've talked about this so many times. Is this not like the most amazing year in space exploration?
It's got to be, isn't it?
It has to be, doesn't it?
Everything is happening.
And as I said, it's the most amazing year for totally new vehicles.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's the Ariane 6 as well, which is supposed to
the Ariane 6.
Supposed to have its maiden flight at the end of the year, but it's still to be determined.
And mini rovers on the moon.
Oh yeah, and a British rover on the moon.
Yes.
And don't forget, folks, that Britain is sending a rover to the moon, and it's quite a revolutionary rover because it will walk about on the moon on 6 jointed legs like an insect instead of having wheels. Yes, Michael's doing a fantastic impersonation of a moon rover with 6 jointed legs. Well done, Michael. Didn't know you had it in you, mate.
It was like a demented space invader then.
And I heard that we're printing out flesh and body parts for those rovers as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the tardigrades will be taking them over anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the ones which have now mutated to be the size of what should they be? The size of giraffes. I think that's the latest unit of measurement, isn't it? They said.
Yeah.
They said an asteroid
and they're a little bit.
Earth was the size of 2 giraffes. So.
What measurement's that?
I don't know. But yes, it was in one of the newspapers that there is an asteroid that has only just been discovered that's hurtling towards the Earth, and it's as long as 2 giraffes. So,
but there's also supposed to have been, something to look forward to, is that they were predicting that in a few years' time, a asteroid's going to hit Earth on Valentine's Day. No, nice one. Where'd you get your missus? An asteroid.
Absolutely. Yes, and of course, the other unit of measurement that the BBC loves using is the asteroid could obliterate an area the size of Wales. And an area the size of Wales is the BBC's standard unit of measurement for area.
They got it in for Wales.
Yes, absolutely.
Does Jonathan know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there we are. Well, Jonathan will be joining us on Monday, of course.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just have a look at the calendar. The sundial on the countdown clock currently says that the launch will be in 17 minutes. So they've actually got past the 20-minute hold again. So I was thinking maybe they'll stop at 20 and recycle, but the countdown is still going for Terran-1. We're
fantastic.
Just over 17 minutes away now from the launch of the world's first 3D printed rocket, and the start possibly of a whole new era in rocket manufacture. So
can you share the screen again?
No.
The live feed.
Let's just tune in with the old Valve Wireless.
Because we've had a new listener, Tushar, who was wondering if this is the real stream where we're showing.
Right, 1 second, and I will just get that back actually.
Right, while you're talking about that, or you're sorting that out, excuse me if I get this name wrong, but Tushar edits Space Oddities. It says a piece of meteor or asteroid fell on my house. What should I do? Now, this is an interesting question. I did do a show on this when we used to do the radio. Now, if something falls on your house and it's space debris, or things like that, with asteroids, I'm not really sure, because you could get into all these debates about who owns the asteroid. Well, apparently, in most civilized countries, you actually own the asteroid. But if it hits your car or anything like that, you'll find your car will be worth a lot more than the actual asteroid or the meteorite. Because people love things like this. There have been instances. There was a lady in America who a meteorite came through the roof of her house, and she was asleep on her bed and hit her in the stomach. But luckily, most of the energy had been taken away out of it, but it left her with quite a big bruise. There are other reports of other people being hit. There was a young chap in South America somewhere who an asteroid come through. He was wearing a baseball cap, and it actually went through the peak of his cap and hit him on the knee. And he was able to sell that cap for quite a lot of money, apparently. So
I seem to remember somebody had their car wrecked a few years ago.
That's right, yeah, and that car became instantly worth thousands more than it was originally, than it was actually thing. But if you can get things like that, if you can find things that have been hit, or there's stories of dogs being killed. Historically, there are in the records. I've seen records printed thousands of years ago where people have actually been reported to have been killed by meteorites, but of course that was so long ago that they can't be proven. But there were three reports, and they all described exactly the same thing. So, maybe. But as regards meteorites, there isn't really a lot you can do about it. If you can collect, if you do find meteorites, like we had the Winchcombe. And it landed on a doctor's driveway, is to basically don't handle it with your hands, wrap it in foil if you can, and get it sealed into a Tupperware box, and then wrap cling film around it. But try not to touch it. Don't go anywhere near it with a magnet, because any magnetic information within that meteorite can be destroyed by rubbing a magnet over it, and notify basically the science community. I think it's the Science Museum, but the reason why you wrap it up and keep it tight is inside that asteroid there is also gases which can be analyzed. No matter how small, they will be able to analyze the gases. And the thing is to avoid contamination, and you can either donate it to science, or you can keep it and sell it on yourself. Absolutely. And some asteroids can collect quite a lot of money.
While we're on the subject of the Winchcombe meteorite, Of course, one of the great things about that meteorite that it was recovered within a few hours of falling, and thus was relatively pristine compared to a lot of other meteorites that have been recovered in the past. And I was reading recently that actually it's not that pristine anymore, because in the laboratory they sliced it they slice it like a ham slicer into very, very thin slices to analyze it under microscopes. And on the meteorite, they found crystals of salt, and they have actually come to the conclusion that they were deposited on the meteorite in the laboratory when they were slicing bits off it, because it's so easy to contaminate these samples. And this was earthly salt. It hadn't come in with the meteorite. This was earthly salt from within the lab. So it's very, very difficult to preserve the pristine nature of these meteorites. So there we are. And for those of you watching, thank you for staying with us. We are now looking at. I can't quite read that clock. It's being obscured by something on my screen. What's that clock say? It's 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes. Thank you. We're now looking at launch in 11 minutes. This is where it starts getting exciting, and there you see on the screen in front of you the Terran-1 rocket from Relativity Space, whose launch we are covering today because it's a world first, because it's the world's first 3D printed rocket, or at least 85% of it is 3D printed, including the engines. And to 3D print a rocket engine is quite an amazing thought. We are hoping that this is all a success. It's the second attempt this week to launch this rocket. The first was scrubbed due to abnormal temperatures in the fuel in the second stage. And we are now just 10 minutes away or thereabouts from seeing this go into orbit, hopefully. So let's have our fingers crossed. And we appear to have lost Daz.
Yeah.
But as if by magic, he's back. I have the power, you see. I can make people materialize and dematerialize as I like.
You thought Rachel was coming on.
Yeah. Yes.
Is my sound any better? Because I think it was because I was messing with my sound. I managed to turn myself off. Somebody said I'm loud.
Well, Daz, you've turned lots of people off tonight.
It's still a little bit loud, Daz.
Yeah. So, no, I have actually slightly attenuated your sound, Daz, because that microphone was coming through.
As long as I'm not too loud.
No.
That's good.
Nobody can ever accuse you of being that, that's for sure. So,
guys, 10 minutes. 10 minutes for launch.
10 minutes for launch.
Fantastic.
And at the 5-minute mark, at the 5-minute mark, we will go over to the audio from Relativity Space so that we can actually listen in the final minutes of the launch. Lots of venting going on there.
Lovely blue sky.
Lovely day for it, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see there's a methane burner. You can see the flames from the methane burner on the left there. So they're burning off a lot of fuel, and all is looking good. So we will be going over to the audio from Mission Control in just a couple of minutes, and John Walton, no relation, I presume, says that according to SpaceX, the launch was on hold from T24, but it's certainly not on hold now. So there we are. Welcome, John, by the way. And everything appears to be progressing well at this moment.
Sorry, why are we talking about SpaceX?
John presumably has been watching the SpaceX Twitter channel, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
But there we are. So there we are. Rachel's still in the chat. Hello, Rachel. Hope you're feeling okay, my darling. And thank you for joining us and staying with us. Are you home yet, Rachel? Or are you still stuck outside in the car listening to this on your car stereo? It was from their channel. Yeah. Thank you, John. And so there we are. Why don't we go now and listen to the last few minutes of the coverage see if we can pick up any information about what's actually happening. So let's tune in now to Relativity Space Live.
With helium. As a reminder, during flight,
for engine chill.
We'll pressurize the tanks with autogenous pressurization. That last call out was that we're pressurizing the tanks for engine chill.
Right, so the engine chill's going ahead. So this is one of the last things that happens.
Yeah. Just to answer Bernard's question, SpaceX haven't actually got anything to do with this launch. They're just covering it on their YouTube channel, along with NASA space flight and several others.
We're now getting into the business end of today's countdown. Let's take a moment to walk through the launch timeline.
At T-minus 3 minutes, the transporter erector, or that black truss structure, will retract just a few degrees to give the proper angle for umbilical separation. At this point, the vehicle will be on internal power. Then at T-minus 70 seconds, the vehicle will go into terminal count. This is again when the vehicle's internal flight computer takes control of the countdown. And we then go into final flight termination checks.
To igniters and flight targets.
And get FTS go from the launch conductor in coordination with the mission flight control officer and operations safety manager. At T-minus 6 seconds, we'll have ignition of those 9 beautiful 3D printed Aeon-1 engines, so you'll see the flames beneath the rocket at that point. And at T0, we will have liftoff. Shortly after that, at T+2 seconds, the strong back will throw back to assist in removing the umbilicals and clear the path for the vehicle to fly. At T+12 seconds, we'll begin our pitch over program, and at T+80 seconds is that important milestone of max Q, or the point of maximum dynamic pressure. This is again where the structural loads on the vehicle are the highest, making it one of the more challenging phases of flight.
At approximately T+160 seconds, we will get to main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is when the stage 1 engines will shut off. This will be followed shortly by stage separation and ignition of the Aeon vacuum engine. Second stage will burn for a little under 5 minutes. And then at approximately T+463 seconds, we'll have second engine cutoff, or SECO. As a reminder, we do not have a fairing or any payload deployments for today's first launch. We'll go ahead and continue listening in on mission control.
Okay, so that was your agenda for after the launch, I guess. You can say that.
Let's remind our viewers that there's no payload on this rocket for today's launch.
That's right. There's no payload. It's not putting anything into orbit. It is strictly an experimental flight to see this rocket fly for the first time. And it's the time is fast approaching now. Also, viewers, while we're waiting, why don't you take the time, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to Space Oddities. We will be covering all major space launches live.
We're currently priming the igniters with gaseous oxygen and gaseous hydrogen. Our ignition system uses these propellants flowing across a glow plug.
So your subscriptions are always much appreciated. And
stage 1 igniters priming in.
Just hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, put something in the chat. There'll be comments preferably, because...
As a reminder, GLHF is our maiden launch, so while a nominal flight would have Terran-1 reach orbit today, our primary goal is to learn as much as we can and demonstrate the product concept. A major milestone would be to have Terran-1 make it through max Q, the point of maximum dynamic pressure.
To answer Matthew's question, yes, Matt, there is a dummy mass in the nose to simulate the weight of a payload. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's called Donald Trump.
It's called Donald Trump, says a voice in the background. So,
and you'll now see those cradle arms are slowly starting to release stage 2 at the top there, so that the strong back can retract.
I thought it would be called Bruce Willis.
Again with the Bruce Willis.
Guys, this is really exciting.
You and your bromance.
Over the next minute and a half, we'll be performing the final thrust vector control health checks on both stages before liftoff. You'll be able to see the engines gimbaling or tilting if we're in that engine view. There we go.
Wow. So they're testing the engine gimbaling, and they look to be gimbling away merrily, don't they?
Stage 1 is on internal power.
Looking good.
Okay, guys.
T-minus
Looking
3
good.
minutes.
Looking good.
Strong back retracting.
We're now
And
down
now
to
that
less
black
than 3
truss
minutes
structure
before.
behind the vehicle will retract just a few degrees to prepare for umbilical separation.
Looking good. You're watching Space Oddities. This is our live coverage of the Terran-1 rocket from Relativity Space, the world's first 3D printed rocket. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, the last hold is T-minus 70 seconds.
Stage 2 TC checkups.
I hope they've got some onboard cameras.
As we approach T-minus 2 minutes, what you're looking at on your screen is a vehicle that is 85% 3D printed, and it is about to fly. Next up, our range coordinator will ask the range for their final range status.
Lots of noises there.
Healthy noises. Okay, coming up on 1 minute before launch.
We lost that again.
Yes, Daz is...
Hold. Is the MIFCO a hold due to a fouled range?
Oh,
what was
foul range.
You heard that call out. Someone is calling a hold due to the range. We're going to stand by for updates.
Oh, no. Probably someone in the boat.
always somebody in a boat, isn't it?
Yeah.
One minute before launch. How frustrating.
What can you do?
There appears that there may be a vessel within our clear radius. We're going to stand by to hear confirmation from the range.
Oh dear.
So frustrating.
Yeah, they're just going to pop out and to torpedo it, and they'll sort that out.
The countdown is still progressing, though, but it's going upwards now.
Well, hold on, folks. For those who are viewing us, we'll just see what's going on with the time delay.
And I just got confirmation there is a boat in the range. We're going to stand by to see if they can clear the boat from our radius.
Well, viewers, we're sorry to have to tell you that a boat has come into the exclusion zone off the coast for this launch, and we're just waiting to hear from Relativity Space what's going to happen. And yes, Tushar says bad boats indeed.
Yes.
So we've had this before with SpaceX. There's always some idiot who you know, shouldn't be in charge of a car, let alone a boat, drifting into the area. Boeing Boatface.
Boeing Boatface, yes.
Says Matthew. Yes. It could be a sabotage by Boeing, but my first suspect would be Blue Origin, actually.
Once again, just to clarify, our vehicle is healthy and all systems appear to be performing nominal. We just got to go for the weather for upper level winds, but unfortunately there is currently a boat in the range, so we're just awaiting confirmation to see if they can clear that boat in time and get it out of our radius.
Shoot it out of the water. Easy solution.
The job we're not launching in the English Channel, isn't it?
Yes. Why do you think they're launching from Shetland? When they get
Daz,
a boat there, they have a year-long party.
Yeah, Daz, as you said, I think they need a submarine to sink all the boats that come in range.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Open fire all weapons. Yeah. Flash Gordon, that's it. Anyway, yeah, it's the problem is that they may now have to reset the clock at some time.
Yes.
To start the countdown. Now, last time they did this, they went back to, I think it was 20 minutes. But also, they do sometimes go back to 50 minutes, so we may have to have another long wait. Well, I'll just wait, see what happens. And this is such a sad event. I mean, they were so close. So close.
So
frustrating.
What impact does that have on the launch vehicle at the moment? Obviously, there's liquids that are under enormous amount of pressure within the rocket. What potential problems could this delay have?
Well, that's the problem. You get boil off of
Announcement countdown net to
liquid.
the LD. We got a hold called prior to terminal count.
Because I noticed they put the
89
clock
have been
back.
cleared. We are adjusting for a new T0 time. We'll hold the clock for terminal count until we pick up the count.
Right. So I don't know whether they're
All
going
right,
to
now
reset.
we are just confirming a new launch time. All items that were blocking us and giving us a red range have now been cleared out. So we're going to await that updated launch time and then update the T clock above as necessary.
Yeah, so we should have a reset of the clock at some time.
Seems like they stopped the boat.
Yeah, hopefully.
Sinking boat.
But no, these things happen. It's such a shame. They were so close. I thought we were going, but yeah, it's. They'll just have to reset a few things. They'll have to take it back to. With resetting it, they have to take the clock back.
All right, and the clock is about to resume just shortly here. They are coordinating that new T0. We're very excited to get this thing going.
Countdown net. T clock should pick up in 60 seconds.
Ooh.
60
All right.
seconds.
So it looks like.
We're starting from 110.
Yeah, so they're
We
starting
have
from the
confirmed
70
our
seconds.
new T0 is going to be 14:42 Eastern. Once again, that's
All right,
14:42. We'll see the T
Wow.
clock rolling in just a moment here.
I'm impressed.
That's impressive.
Yeah, well done.
That
They're
has to be
confident.
Yeah, as I said earlier, that the last possible hold moment is T minus 70 seconds, but if you notice, the clock actually went to minus 1 minute 9 seconds.
That's right.
So so it they obviously noticed this, and it just automatically shut itself down once it got notification. But they've reset it to 70 seconds now, and should pick up. Here we go. It started.
T clock's rolling. Terminal count.
No more boats, please.
And we are down to 1 minute and counting. 60 seconds and counting.
Flight computer and
Fantastic.
countdown. T minus 60. GCU with the count.
Please, no more boats.
LD, are you go for launch? LD is go for launch.
And we just got that final go for launch from our launch director. We are now just about,
Calm down, dear.
range is green. We're now about 30 seconds away from the moment that we've all worked so hard for our first launch. We've had a lot of fun with you, Terran-1. Good luck. And here we go.
And this mission is indeed titled Good Luck, Have
9,
Fun.
8, 7, 6.
Oh. Wow. They work. Oh.
Oh no.
Oh dear.
Well, we'll see you at some point in the future, viewers.
Oh no, what's happened?
Oh dear. We had a shutdown.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, we had a nice blue flame there for a little while.
Ignition of our engines, but the T clock did hold at T0. We're going to stand by for updates.
Ah.
Oh, it was looking so good until then.
It was.
Oh.
Oh dear.
So it'll be interesting now to see whether or not they can, because now they've actually fired the engines, they've used some of the fuel. So they may, hopefully they might be able to just top it up. If not, they'll have to detank and start again, which will scrub it for the day, but we'll see. See what they say. Fingers crossed.
Looks like a scrub to me. It has that distinctive smell of a scrub.
All depends how much they've still got a launch window.
Mm.
If they can detank and then retank and go through the whole thing again, we'll find out in a minute.
At least it didn't do an unscheduled disassembly.
No, that's
true. Do a rud.
Oh well, that was disappointing.
Oh dear, how sad. Never mind.
Still intact. Still ready to go.
So this is what it's all about, isn't it? You've got to test these things. Space isn't easy. If it was, everybody would be doing it.
They are. Look, that's detanking. Yeah. So there will not be a launch today, probably. But let's just wait for official word from Relativity Space. Tushar says SpaceX hacked in. Yeah, could well be, Tushar. And then Matthew, indeed. Matthew says,
is there any ex-SpaceX employees?
This is why they test. Well said, Matthew. Absolutely true.
That's a scandalous accusation there, Michael.
I know.
Yes, Sandra. Great shame. Great shame, Sandra. But, you know, space is hard, as they say. Space.
All right, I'm hearing from Mission Control that we're currently assessing vehicle health to confirm if we can do a recycle today and try this thing one more time.
Yeah, well, if they do a recycle, that means it's going to be later in the day.
Yes. Later in the night here.
Yeah, so we'll just see what they say and then move on. But yes, it's a shame. I was getting quite excited there.
Look at all the ice falling off the rocket there.
Yeah, exactly. Just shows how cold everything is.
Oh yeah, look at all that ice, yeah.
It's not paint, incidentally. It is ice. SpaceX calculated that if they were to paint their Starship, as many people have asked, why don't you paint it? Because it's just stainless steel. They calculated that painting the Starship would add 20 tons to its weight just in the paint.
Yeah. Wow.
This is why they didn't do it. So
requires several coats.
Dulux would do good out of it.
Yes. Yeah, that's I remember years ago, Michael, when I was a young man, and that such a time did exist, I promise you. Yeah, That's actually the sound of the rocket venting, in case you're wondering. Let me just turn that off for a moment.
I should be back shortly, guys.
Okay. And don't call you Shirley. Yes, that is the sound of the venting. So they are definitely detanking the rocket and recycling. Well, at least they're detanking. We don't know whether they're going to recycle yet.
So Tushar is asking what's the closing window, and
well, if they have to refuel, it's going to be, I would think, at least a couple of hours.
Announcement on Countdown Net. This is the LD. We aborted terminal count on a launch commit criteria violation at T-minus 0.5 seconds prior to liftoff. We're safing the vehicle and assessing recycle opportunities.
The countdown was stopped automatically.
As you heard, once again, we had a violation with our launch commit criteria, which is why we had an abort shortly before liftoff. The team is continuing to assess vehicle health to confirm if we can have a recycle today.
So they had an automatic abort at T-minus 0.5 seconds. They were half a second away from success. And the engines, as we saw, had already lit, but automatically were shut down. Yeah, hi Kev. Yeah, just to update you, the countdown was automatically stopped at T-minus 0.5 seconds, about as close as you can get. The engines had already lit. The good thing that we saw was that all the engines did light and were working, so there is that. But something stopped the countdown. The computer was obviously unhappy about something. We're waiting to see whether they are going to recycle today or whether they're going to suspend the launch for another day, which of course will be the third attempt to get this bird into orbit. We're just waiting for news from Relativity Space.
And let's remind our viewers that this is not an exception, that this is generally how maiden launches take place, is that there's often aborts and relaunches later on.
Well, in fact, Bernard, reading up on this, no space agency or no space company has ever got a new rocket into orbit on their first attempt. So it's never happened. So this is no exception. So they've one attempt earlier this week ended because of basically the fuel in the second stage was getting too warm. Today has been definitely stopped. We don't know whether they're going to recycle today. It's just the way it goes. Space is hard. And
how about the SLS? I mean, we saw the maiden flight of the SLS.
Yes.
But how many times did they try to launch it?
Yeah, I mean.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I get it.
Several attempts to launch the SLS. Yeah. If you remember, Bernard, all the hydrogen leaks they were having, and
yes.
They got Murphy the plumber out to fix those, and he didn't do a very good job.
The red team was there.
The red team had to go in. If you remember the red team, those brave men who went in to fix the problem with the hydrogen valve, in a very very dangerous environment.
As a reminder, we're currently at 14:50 Eastern Time, and our launch window is open until 1600 Eastern. So our teams are currently assessing any recycle opportunities that we have during this time.
So they've got about an hour and 45 minutes left of the launch window.
Yeah, it'll be close. It'll be close if they're going to do it.
Very close if they pull this one off.
But yes, as we said, it very rarely does it. I mean, I've seen worse premiere launches, so they've been more dramatic. But yeah, I mean, the rocket's still there, which is one thing. As we saw, as you said, Andy, we saw all the engines ignite, so we know that they're working. It was a nice clean start. It was just that one violation. What was it, the computer found that shut it all down again?
And did you notice the engines, the lovely blue glow of methane burning?
Yeah, exactly. Lovely blue, clean flame. But no doubt some people won't be happy about that. But there you go. But yeah, no, there was a very, like you said, we saw them all launch, and I thought all lights, and I thought, wow, here we go. But yeah, it just suddenly shut down.
Wasn't to be, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
but we can go through the excitement another day.
Yeah, thank you all for staying with us for so long. We are just waiting to see whether it's going to happen today or whether it's going to be postponed. My guess is that it will not happen today, but we will see. Not that I'm not an optimist, because I am, but I don't think they've got enough time left for...
You'll see an occasional cloud coming out of the transporter erector or the black truss structure there. That is just because we're keeping our propellant topped in case we can re-attempt a launch before the end of the window today at 4 p.m. Eastern.
So they're keeping it topped. So that means they're not going to go through a full recycle, detank and then retank.
Right. In which case, if they're keeping it topped up, it could happen almost immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that they will go, but it means that they're possibly they're keeping the option open. Well, keeping it. And sorry, Andy.
It depends rather why the countdown was stopped in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly. But they're keeping the option there. So obviously they don't think it was anything too dramatic. They're hoping it's something that they can look and adjust, and maybe we'll start again. But it'll probably be quite, because I noticed the clock is reset to 45 minutes. So.
Yes.
It seems like the problem might not be such a critical problem after all.
Maybe
no,
not.
Until they investigate it, but they're keeping their options open. And
as
like
you can
I said,
see, the T clock rolled back. We are still working on a recycle, so we'll keep you updated as soon as we have confirmation.
Guys, on this note, I will have to depart due to time constraints.
Oh, what a shame.
Yes, I might be able
to.
Thanks. Depending on how much has been pushed back, I might be able to join again.
Yes, keep an eye on what they're saying, Bernard, because this probably don't know whether it's going to be today or another day. So.
Yeah, totally. I wish you all the best if you keep on watching, and thank you again, viewers. We hope Relativity will take. We'll have a great.
Thank you for being here, Bernard. And
thanks for coming.
And we'll see you soon. See you on Monday.
See you soon. Take care.
Cheers, bye.
And just a few words, actually, while we're on the subject. Our Monday show on Space Oddities at 8 p.m. UK time. We will have a new member of the Space Oddities panel joining us. You'll have to watch on Monday to find out who it is, but we're very excited to have this person as a panelist on Space Oddities. He or she may not be able to be with us every week, but they will certainly be there to bring their little bit of the universe to you on Monday nights, and we're very excited about that. Also coming on Monday, Lou's going to carry on with his stories of mistakes that have been made in astronomy in the past. And if you remember last Monday's show, he was talking about the Martian meteorite that was had many people convinced contained traces of life, but in the end it probably doesn't, although there's no conclusive answer. I don't know what it'll be talking about this Monday, but I can guarantee you it'll be interesting. So that's Lou's mistakes in astronomy coming up on Monday. Michael, have you got anything you want to bring up on Monday? As yet?
Good point. Not as yet.
Not as yet. And has you got anything for Monday as yet that we can tell the viewers about? Guys can't hear me. Okay.
Okay. I do have I do now have the printed versions of Capcom.
Oh, fantastic! That looks good.
Yeah.
So, if you would like to buy a subscription to Michael's Capcom magazine that he has been editor of for how many years was it, Michael?
30 years.
30 years. For 30 years,
yeah.
Michael has been creating and editing this wonderful magazine, Capcom. with everything about space travel in it. And he deserves your support, to be quite honest, because it's a wonderful magazine. How can people get hold of it, Dan? Where can they describe?
Yeah, basically,
Michael?
I take it that's a Relativity Space soundtrack at the moment.
Yes. Let me just turn the sound off, and then we can hear you better. They've got some Potter's Wheel music playing there.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
Michael. Yes. So, how can people subscribe to your wonderful magazine?
All they need to do is go to the website at gospacewhat.earth/Capcom, and that takes them to the subscription page, and all the details there.
Fantastic.
The simplest way is just using PayPal, and just pay £14 for 6 issues delivered to a UK address, or £10 for 6 issues as a PDF delivered to any email address.
That's wonderful.
So
perhaps you'd be good enough to put that address in the chat for people, if you would be so good.
I should just bear
on
with me a
YouTube.
second. Yeah.
Tushar reckons is guessing that said. Is Elon Musk coming? I'm assuming that's on Monday. No, because Elon didn't pass the test.
No, he failed.
We want people who know something about space.
You mean he didn't pass the Tesla?
Oh.
No. Oh dear me, Michael, just get on with what you're doing, please. Come on.
Yeah, so just carry on, Michael. Just dear me, where do we get?
But
I know you love me, really.
I know. Yes.
It's just, we're just still waiting to see whether or not they're going to be able to get this off the ground today.
I'm just going to see if
as
there's
I said, it'll
anything
be
else going on in terms of sound. No, still playing.
I mean, whatever happens, the count will start from 45 minutes anyway. So it's going to be, and as you said, they've got probably about an hour and a half before they have to scrub it now. So we'll if they don't make an announcement soon, they'll probably be scrubbed, and we'll have to do this all again some other day.
Yes, absolutely.
I have got an idea for possibility in the future. Of a topic we could cover. I was thinking, the picture of the 2001 Orion spacecraft that was on Facebook the other day.
Yes.
I was wondering about a section on our favourite spacecraft from science fiction.
That's a good idea, and in fact, Michael, Bernard and Daz and myself were talking about doing a program covering all sorts of things like that.
Okay.
Books and films and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
So we must get together and discuss that, the four of us.
Because I didn't realise that on that Facebook post, I didn't realise that Orion spacecraft in 2001, the Pan Am one, was supposed to be launched on a skid, on a what do you call it, a
ramp,
on a trolley, on a
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Matthew says Silent Running. That's the best. That was indeed
I
a great
agree.
movie for its time.
Especially those little robots.
Yes, Huey and Dewey, weren't they?
That's right.
And Bruce Dern, of course, was.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's Laura Dern's father, of course. Laura Dern, who was in Jurassic Park. That's her father.
Yeah.
I suppose you could say Silent Running, you could say, as there was a forerunner of The Martian, because they were growing all of the forests.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
That's
true. Absolutely. So we're just waiting. Let me just check and see if they're saying anything. I'm going to have to go myself before too long.
Yeah, me too, actually. Anyway, I think.
Unfortunately. So let's just see what's going on here. No, All we've got is music at the moment. Right.
Yeah, of course, when we're talking about ships from films, for creepiness, as you got the Nostradamus from Alien.
Yeah.
That was one creepy ship, yeah.
The Nostromo.
Yeah, the Nostromo. So, yeah, that's all like puts the shivers up your spine.
And the actual ship that the alien came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's even weirder. We never did find out the story behind that.
No. I presume it was all an artist painting film.
Well, the thing is, without going into too much deal, they did they did a Star Wars thing, didn't they? Where you had the Alien films, and then they did the prequels. You had Prometheus, and then there was one that followed on after that, which was supposed to tell the tale. But yeah, it didn't work very well.
They lost the plot with that.
Yeah.
But there was a bit of a cross-reference. There's one scene in Star Wars where you can clearly see the alien's head in the background.
Right.
And also in the Predator film, you see when the Predator's got all those objects that he's hunted. There's the alien's head there as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sort of cross-fertilization going. Right, guys, I think we need to come to a decision because I see our audience are disappearing now. I think we should call things to a close for this evening.
Well, let's hope for a successful launch.
Yes, because I should be very surprised if they launch today. We don't know what the fault is that stopped the countdown, and it might not be repairable today. So I think we will say good evening, and thank you so much for being here. But it is Saturday night, and my daughter is off camera. She's nagging me to come and be with her. So I think we'll call it a night. If by any chance it does launch today, we will have a replay of it on Monday's show on Space Oddities. So at least you'll be able to see it if you haven't seen it by then, that you've not watched it somewhere else. We will be back on Monday at 8 o'clock UK time for a normal Monday evening Space Oddities show with our new panelist, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. or Mrs. or whatever X, who will be joining us for the first time on Space Oddities as a regular panelist. We're looking forward very much to having him. Hope you will join us on Monday, where you can find out who it is. And until then, have a fantastic weekend from everybody at Space Oddities. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry it hasn't worked out how we hoped it was going to, but as we constantly say, space is hard and things actually rarely go to plan. Alright guys, thank you so much for being here. All the best to you, and from all of us at Space Oddities, have a lovely weekend. Say goodbye,
Bye
panel.
for now.
Bye.
Bye, panel. See you later. Take care, everyone.